Hi everybody, I'm TJ, this is Baby Star. So I decided to make this video because in the middle of the night last night when I was up breastfeeding, I looked at my YouTube channel and I saw that there was a really offensive comment from a hater. What do you think about these haters? What do you think about them? I wanted to respond to it because some of you who are considering having a baby at a later age may hear comments like this. And I wanted to give you some thoughts about it that might help you deal with it if it happens. Now, this comment was particularly spiteful and mean and judgmental and really derogatory towards single women who choose to have a baby by themselves. That was one part of the comment. And the second part of the comment was basically saying, you're going to be a dried up old hag while you're raising this child because you're so old, and having a child at almost 50 is basically child abuse. He actually used the word child abuse. And that made me go, wow. Think about the sort of person that would write that comment. I mean, I feel sad for him. I mean, what sort of a life he must have had that he has so much hate in him. So really, I just feel compassion for this person. I'm not upset personally by the comment. I don't take it personally. I mean, I know that this baby is in such a state of love, having such a beautiful life. It's about as far from child abuse as anything could be. She's a very happy little chappy, as you can see in these videos. But I still wanted to address it because underneath that, there are some thoughts that many people have that it's not a good idea to have a baby late and that's not going to be good for the child to have an older parent. Obviously, it's not child abuse, but I just wanted to talk about it in this video. And I want to start by saying it is a big issue. It's something I took very, very seriously, and I will make lots of videos about it over the next couple of years. I will make a video talking about all the things I've took into account when making this decision, and I will make a video talking about the things I have set in place to look after this child if something should happen to me at some point in my life as I get older. Obviously, everyone's going to die at some point, and you don't know how long you're going to live, and you don't know what your quality of life is going to be like. But most people are on a trajectory, and you can usually see how healthy you are. And yes, there can be unexpected health twists, but generally, if someone's fairly healthy in their 40s, they're probably going to be fairly healthy into their 50s and 60s. After that, it can be a bit more of a crapshoot. But even though I'm super healthy, but I've still put in contingency plans, backup people, and lots of strategies to make sure she will be looked after and have people in her life who loves her. So I'll talk about that in another video. But in this video, I really want to talk about these kinds of comments that imply that it's somehow bad for the child to have an older parent. And really, what does a child need in order to be happy? They need to be loved. They need to be allowed to be themselves. They need to be seen for who they are. They need to be listened to with empathy. They need to be allowed to express themselves. They need to be given the wherewithal to do the things that they want to do. They need to be given a good education. They need to be surrounded by a loving community and loving people. I mean, they need to be given healthy, nutritious food. All of these things can be given by someone at any age. And I would actually say that in many cases, the older mothers, the mothers who are choosing to have a baby in their 40s, are in a better position to give a lot of those things. For many reasons that I'm going to talk about in lots of videos, just in brief summary, if you're in your 40s, particularly your late 40s, and you're choosing to have a child, you probably really, really want that child because you're going to have to do IVF. You're probably going to have to use a donor egg. It's not something you're going to do lightly. So that child is going to be very, very loved. Like this little angel is very, very loved. And right now she's just had the most yummy, nutritious breastfeed and she's feeling very happy and content. That's why she's sitting here like a little happy angel. She's a very content child. She's very, very loved. She feels loved in every moment. If you're an older mother, you're probably pretty settled in your life. You've probably done a lot of the things you want to do. I've talked about that in other videos, how you don't have any FOMO, you can be really present, you don't have any fear of missing out, you're not wanting to be anywhere else, you're very present, you're wanting to do this experience. If you're going to make a choice to do something like IVF, it's pretty expensive in most countries, so you're probably going to be in a fairly financially stable situation if you're considering this, which means you're probably going to have the wherewithal to look after your child financially. Now, there are lots of issues about privilege and wealth privilege that allows some women to take this path and not others, and I'm very aware of that, and I'd like to talk about that in other videos. But in this video, I just want to make the point that the majority of women who are going to make this choice at a later stage are going to probably have waited until the point where they were financially secure or at least financially able to do it. Often by the time someone is in their 40s, they've been through the crucible of life. They've been forged in the fires of Mordor, like the ring. They've been forged, they've lost people, they've had their heart broken, they've had big disappointments, they've had career setbacks, and they've learned how to stay stable. Usually during things, they've matured, they've learned how to respond to life, not in reaction and not to take crazy risks. They've learned how to be a little bit maybe more sensible in their choices. There's a word for this. It's called maturity. Look it up in the dictionary, right? That's what maturity means. It's the wisdom that comes, the groundedness, the ability to be sensible and rational, the ability to make wise decisions rather than impulsive decisions. That's what it means to be mature. And someone who's in their late 40s who's choosing to do something like IVF, which is a long path, is probably going to be much more mature than they would have been 20 years earlier. That's just reality. That's just what aging does. There are positives and negatives of aging. Now, if someone on top of all of that is also on a path of personal growth, as many people are in the modern era, they've probably also done some work on their triggers, on their childhood wounding, on their issues, on their relationships with their nuclear family. They've probably worked through a lot of stuff. Maybe they've forgiven people. Maybe they've learned to love themselves. Maybe they're at a point of finding joy in their own life and they're stable and grounded in the spiritual, personal growth sense. And they're probably at a point where they're less reactive than they used to be. So they're less likely to scream at a child or hit a child or act out around a child. They're probably less likely to turn to drugs and other things to cope with wild reactive swings in their life. They're probably generally more mentally stable if they've done that kind of work on themselves. Now, I'm not saying everyone in the late 40s is more stable than everyone in the late 20s. Obviously, that's not true. But generally, the kind of people who make this choice later in life are pretty stable, mature people. And yes, there are obviously downsides of getting older. You're probably going to have less energy than you had when you were 25 if you're 45. And as your child gets older, you're going to be 55 and then you're going to be 65. And again, it's going to be harder. You're going to have less energy, but you're going to have to manage that. And anyone who's making this choice to have a baby at a later age will manage that. They're the sort of person that's making a deliberate choice. So they will have things set in place. They may have some help. Maybe they've got some younger cousins, or maybe they've got a nanny or a manny who's helping their child run around and they're supervising, but maybe they're not doing as much of the physical stuff. There's lots of solutions. They're taking their child to play groups. They're making sure their child has lots of friends the same age they can run around with. But they're giving their child a stable, loving, mature, wise environment, but they're not necessarily running around playing football with them all day. A child can do that with their friends. What they can't do with their friends is have someone who listens to them deeply, gives them empathy, teaches them by example, gives them a moral background, gives them a sense of self-love and stability. Those are the things that they need their parent for. They don't need their parent as a sport buddy. Yes, it is wonderful if you have a younger parent who can play sport with you and run around. That's beautiful. Everybody loves to do that with their parents, of course. My child may miss out on that when she's 15 and I'm in my early 60s. I may not be able to run around as much as I would have in my early 40s. That's obviously true, but I may be able to run around a bit. I've got plenty of friends in their 60s who are very active. They're dancing, they're playing instruments, they're going out, they're traveling. I know plenty of people in their 70s who are still doing that. You know, life expectancy is getting better, rates of health are getting better. But yes, you're not going to probably be as active. But one of the things that a person has to assess if they're choosing whether they're going to do this path of having a baby at a later age is their health, their general health. So I'm sure that if you're someone considering going down this path, you've thought about your health. You're probably someone who's in a reasonable state of health. Yes, I'm sure there are some people who have a baby at a later age who are in a bad state of health, and I totally support that decision if that's your decision, and I know you'll have a harder road, but maybe you'll build some other supports in that will help you and your child get their needs met on a daily basis if you're having some health issues, and I completely support that. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think that often when someone's making a decision as to whether to have a child in their 40s, they'll be taking into account their health. And I suspect, like me, there'll be someone who considers themselves to be in pretty good health. If I wasn't in as good health as I am, I may not have chosen to do this. I may have gone, okay, I've left it a bit late. But in my case, I'm actually really healthy. My doctor actually said that I had some of the best postpartum blood test results he's ever seen. And most of his clients are probably in their 20s and 30s. So, you know, my health is good. I had a really easy pregnancy and I've had a really easy postpartum discovery. My health in my 40s, for me personally, is actually better than it was in my 20s because I had some issues with chronic pain for a long time and I had to do a lot of work on my health, on my diet, my nutrition, just a million things to make sure that I was really recovered from that. So I'm actually in a really good state of health, better than I was 20 years ago. Now, I'm not saying every person in their 40s has had that story and is more healthy now than they were when they're younger, but some people are. A lot of people go on a health journey when they're older. A lot of people start to see their lifestyle catching up with them from their 20s when they were drinking and dancing and partying and taking drugs, and they clean themselves up in their 30s and 40s, and often they're a lot healthier. But the bottom line is it's not child abuse to have a child when you're in your late 40s. If you were a child, would you rather have 50 or 60 years with someone who was an alcoholic or an abuser or just just an absent parent or a distant parent, or who was negative towards you or critical towards you or judgmental or put you down, didn't let you to follow your dreams, or cut you off when you talked, or was cruel to you or mean to you, or didn't provide a stable environment, or who was coming and going, or who didn't give you any emotional attention, or who wasn't supportive or empathetic towards you. All of those things can lead to a situation of much more child abuse than just someone being older. I personally, if I was a child, would rather have 20 or 30 years with a parent who really loved me, who provided a warm, stable, mature, loving, calm, healthy environment for me, who loved me, nurtured me beautifully like I'm doing with this child. I'd rather have 20 or 30 years with that mother than 50 or 60 years with a mother that was abusive, withdrawn, alcoholic, unavailable, wishing they weren't a parent, wanting to be somewhere else, not emotionally stable. I mean, there's thousands of things that a person can be that make that person's childhood way more difficult than just someone being an older mother. So I think we really have to take all of this into context and look at the bigger picture and what is it that a child really needs. And don't ask yourself how old you are or how long you're going to live or how many years your child's going to have with you. Ask yourself, can I give my child these things? Can I give them a stable home environment? Can I give them love? Can I give them empathy? Can I give them nutritious food? Can I give them friends? Can I give them a good education? Can I give them a loving community around them? Can I give them my time, my energy, my space, my attention? That's what we should be asking ourselves, not how old am I? And the answer to that's going to be different for every person. And that's what I really wanted to share in this video. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a baby older. It just means you have to take some things into account. You have to put some things in place to make sure the child gets the physical exercise and things they need over the years if you do start to age in not such a great state. You have to think about your mortality. You have to organize a will. You have to think about who might look after them if something happens to you. Yes, you have to make some decisions. You have to put some things in place. But you might live till you're 80. You might live till you're 90. The average age of life expectancy in Australia for a woman at the moment is 85. That's the average age, 85. I personally plan to live to 100, but who knows what's going to happen? I can't predict that. But if I live to the average age of 85, she's going to get a long time with me. And yes, maybe from the age of 70, 75, I won't be able to keep up with her as well as I can now. But I'm intending to be pretty healthy into my 50s and 60s. And plenty of people are. And I do something called the Feldenkrais method, which is amazing, keeping your body really free and young. My Feldenkrais practitioner is in her 70s. She moves like a 20-year-old. She runs around and flips around and gets up and down off the floor easily. It's just about the choices you make, how you live your life, what you eat, how you move, the thoughts you think, the people you surround yourselves by. I know plenty of people in their 70s who are very young and sprightly, and I know plenty of people in their 50s who are not, who are really old. They've lived an old life. You know, they haven't looked after themselves. They're thinking negative thoughts. They're eating crappy food. They're not following their dreams. And they kind of feel very old. I just wanted to make a video addressing this because you might hear comments like that. I don't think you'll hear it from your friends or family, because to your friends and family, you're not a number. You're a person. Your friends and family actually know you. They know your state of health. They know your maturity. They know your financial situation. They know the life you've created. They know whether you're ready to look after a child. They know how much you want this child. They're looking at all the factors. They're not just seeing you as a number. Oh, you're 48 years old, or you're 45 years old. They're seeing you as a person. So you're not going to hear these comments from people who know you. I've never had a comment like this. People who know me think I'm going to be an amazing mother. Everyone's like, your child is so lucky to have you as a mother. Because they know me. They know I'm in a position where I can really love and look after a child. So the only comments like this you're going to get are going to be from people who don't know you. And the only thing they have to go on is you're a woman and you're this age, because they don't know anything else about you. So they're making all sorts of assumptions and they're probably wrong. So just ignore them, ignore them. Just think to yourself, would I rather have a mother for 20 or 30 years who could give me an amazing, nourishing, loving, supportive childhood? Or would I rather have a mother for 50 or 60 years who's abusive or absent or withdrawn or emotionally unstable, who doesn't want me? Which would you rather? That's your answer. That's all you have to think. And just know if you're making this choice at an older age, your child will be so loved. Because this is not an easy path. It takes time. It takes commitment. It takes energy. It takes willpower. It takes riding disappointment. And if you're doing it, you're a bloody amazing woman. And you're going to make a bloody amazing mother. She agrees. You're going to make a bloody amazing mother. So just remember that. Baby Star needs to have a play now, so I'm letting her run around. So we're going to say goodbye to you. She's had enough of being in my arms. She's an incredibly patient child, but even she needs some time to play. And that's a thing, as an older mother, I'm giving her an amazing playpen. Tell that to the haters. Tell that to the haters. All right, everybody. See you later. I hope this video has given you some resolution and inspired you. See you soon. Bye.